Translate this and my salary is yours. Old judge mocks black maid, she shocks the whole courtroom. Translate this and my salary is yours. Old judge mocks black maid. Then she shocks everyone. That was the sentence. That changed everything inside that cold marble courtroom. An aging, arrogant judge tried to humiliate a quiet black cleaning lady in front of lawyers, officers, and a crowd full of sneers. He thought she was just a mop in motion. Nobody with no education, no voice, no worth. But when he laughed and threw a Latin phrase at her like a dagger, mocking her intelligence and her presence, her reply didn't just silence the room, it set it on fire. What she revealed next uncovered a buried past, exposed a decades-old crime and forced justice to finally look itself in the mirror. If you've ever been underestimated, ignored, or judged by your appearance, this story is for you. And if you believe that truth can rise from the most unlikely places, subscribe now and don't blink, because this isn't just a courtroom moment. This is a revolution in heels and gloves. In the heart of Charleston, South Carolina, the marble-pillared courthouse stood like a temple of law and old money, a place where the powerful flexed their education like swords and the powerless were expected to know their place. Each morning before the suits arrived, a small framed black woman named Loretta came through the side door with a rolling cart and a mop. No one noticed her. No one spoke to her. At 62 years old, with gray in her braids and pain in her knees, she scrubbed floors, emptied bins, and wiped the polished leather chairs that judges sat in. But Loretta didn't complain. She hummed softly old gospel songs and kept her eyes low, until one morning when Judge Harlan Whitmore, 80 years old and still clinging to his bench like a relic from the segregation era, leaned back during a recess and noticed her standing near the bench quietly sweeping. "Ah, Miss Loretta," he said loudly, condescendingly, "you ever study law?" Few attorneys chuckled. Loretta paused and simply said, "No, sir. Just floors." Harlan smirked. "How about Latin? You know Latin, the language of law?" The courtroom tensed. "No, sir," she said. Again. He pulled out a dusty law book, flipped it open, and read aloud in a booming voice. "Fiat justitia. Are you a talium?" Then he raised an eyebrow. "Translate that and my salary is yours." More chuckles. A security guard stifled a laugh. Loretta looked up slow and sure, and replied, "Let justice be done though the heavens fall." Silence. Judge Harlan's smile dropped. "How?" he began. But Loretta wasn't done. "It's a common legal maxim, originally Roman, used in British courts since the 18th century. Would you like the case precedents, too, sir?" The courtroom froze. Someone whispered, "Who is she?" Judge Harlan stared at her like seeing a ghost, and in that moment, everything began to crack, not just his arrogance but the courtroom's entire view of the woman they'd ignored for years. As news of the Latin incident spread across the courthouse like wildfire, the whispers turned into murmurs of curiosity and then awe. The next day, Loretta came in, as usual, but this time, the attorneys looked at her differently. Judge Harlan, still embarrassed, avoided her gaze entirely. But one young defense lawyer, Nina Caswell, followed her into the janitor's closet and gently asked, "Miss Loretta, How did you know Latin? Loretta wiped her hands on a rag, sighed, and sat down. I wasn't always a janitor, she said. And with that, the truth began to surface. Decades ago, Loretta Wilson had been a top student at Columbia Law School, first in her class, fluent in Latin, French, and constitutional law. She was on track to become the youngest black female judge in New York history. But love, as it often does, changed the course. She fell for a white fellow law student, Peter Whitmore, Judge Harlan's son. When she got pregnant, Peter disappeared, and Heron, he used every ounce of his influence to destroy her reputation, leaked fake cheating accusations, pulled her scholarship, sent letters to law firms blacklisting her name. Loretta lost everything. Her degree, her child, her future. Homeless for a time, she bounced from city to city until settling in Charleston, ironically in the very courthouse where her dreams had once pointed. No one ever recognized her. Until now. Na was horrified. She asked Loretta to come forward. Let the world know who you are. But Loretta shook her head. I buried that fire long ago. Or so she thought. Because someone else had been listening. Judge Harlan. A week later, a mysterious invitation was sent across the city. A special public hearing to review an old judicial misconduct case. The courtroom overflowed with reporters and onlookers. At the center, Judge Harlan, who had requested the hearing himself. Before I die, he said gravely, I need to correct a wrong that's haunted me for 40 years. Then he called Loretta to the front. Miss Loretta Wilson, he said, into the microphone. I destroyed your life. You were brilliant, brave, and better than I ever allowed myself to admit. I feared you'd rise higher than my son, so I crushed you. Gasps echoed through the room. Reporters scribbled furiously. Loretta stood frozen, tears welling, but unshed. Harlan continued. I hereby submit evidence that I falsified letters and influenced deans and employers to blacklist her. I violated my oath as a man of law. In one dramatic sweep, the old judge exposed everything, documents, testimony, the truth. Loretta was offered full legal restoration by the State Bar within 72 hours. The court exploded in applause. But something more incredible happened next. A young man in the audience stood up, tears running down his cheek. My name is Andrew Whitmore, he said. I believe I'm your grandson. Loretta turned slowly. Andrew explained how his mother had raised him alone, never naming his father, but after the story broke, he dug into the past and found Loretta's name in hidden files. A DNA test confirmed it. The boy she thought died in childbirth had lived. Her son had lived and he had a son of his own. Loretta collapsed and sobs as Andrew embraced her. The courtroom filled with people once blind to her presence now stood and wept with her. Months later, the Supreme Court of South Carolina made history. Loretta Wilson was sworn in as the first black woman and the oldest person ever to sit as a judge on the state's high bench. Cameras flashed. National media aired the ceremony live. But when asked for comment, she smiled softly and said, I never wanted revenge. I just wanted the truth to walk into the light. Her robes were custom made on the inner lining, embroidered in gold thread. Fiat. Justitia rule. Let justice be done though the heavens fall. As for Judge Harlan, he retired quietly and passed away 2 months later. In his will, he left everything, not to his estate, but to the Loretta Wilson Foundation for Women in Law, the courtroom where he once mocked her, renamed in her honor. And now each morning, young law students walk past a statue of her outside the courthouse, not holding a mop but holding a book of justice head high, unbowed. Loretta often says, "They laughed when I cleaned their halls. But the law doesn't live in marble. It lives in truth." And every person who heard her story walked away forever changed. Because she didn't just translate Latin, she translated pain into power, silence into voice, and injustice into something divine. And if you believe voices like Loretta's deserve to be heard, tap that subscribe button, because the next unheard voice might just change the world again.